Caffeine, the perfect drug. Actually, coffee, which contains caffeine, and it's also found in other sources. It's in soft drinks, right? It's in tea. It's in chocolate. Caffeine, is definitely a psychostimulant. It's the most popular psychostimulant that we've got. About anywhere from 80 to 90% of Americans report using caffeine in some form. It's orally administered, and most caffeine is actually absorbed in the small intestine, and it has an average half-life of around 4 hours, which is why they suggest you don't drink coffee later in the day, because it's likely to promote kind of arousal. It turns out that our caffeine consumption, like so many other drugs has been increasing. Old-fashioned brewed cup of coffee that you might get in a diner or something like that used to have around 74, 83 milligrams of caffeine. And today, like a Starbucks venti 20-ounce latte of some sort will have like 480 milligrams, of caffeine. Of course, caffeine, we're going to see, may have some significant, health benefits. However, that reference to like a venti latte or like a mocha this and a, white chocolate that, that adds a whole host of additional, sugar and fat and other components that may not be nearly as beneficial in terms of health as the caffeine that you may be consuming itself. So caffeine, of course, is a psychostimulant, like I mentioned. It definitely promotes arousal. What's interesting, though, about studies that look at, like, let's say, cognitive effects of caffeine, they're actually rather similar to a lot of these early studies that were done by or funded by, like the Tobacco Institute, trade groups for, cigarette companies, where they would take a group of, smokers in that case, right? People who were dependent and addicted to, nicotine, and then they would basically have everybody in, that group overnight, abstain from smoking, and then in the morning they would, conduct this study where they would divide this group into two groups. And the first group, they'd give them a cigarette, right? And the second group, they give them sort of a sham cigarette that didn't have any nicotine. And then they would give them all these tasks to do. And lo and behold, the smokers who got their nicotine did far better on, memory tasks, attention tasks, decision-making tasks, etc. Well, those who didn't get their morning fix, didn't do so well. And many of the studies in caffeine do the same thing. Partly it's, because it's hard to find people who don't consume caffeine on a regular basis, to participate as some kind of a caffeine naive group in an experiment. But if you take a whole bunch of coffee drinkers, right, maybe you're one of them, and then you abstain from your caffeine overnight, and then, first thing in the morning, you're given an attention task or you're given a memory task, but you're given no coffee. You might not do as well as, if you were in the group that actually gets the caffeine. So there is an issue about whether, some of these reported improvements in, cognition, that have been linked to caffeine are due more to the relief of the withdrawal symptoms that you might have from abstaining from your regular caffeine, overnight.